Hello, everyone. We had to make a switch to the Hangouts, and we're just waiting for people to join this new one. We should be going in a minute. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. All right. This one is broadcasting. I think we're on YouTube as well. We're just waiting for everyone now to jump over. Hey, Thomas. Thanks for jumping over. Does everyone else know to come over here too?
Yeah, I was the last one leaving the old Hangout, so I think.
Some people get a 403.
Yeah, I did that the first time I tried to join. Then I just tried to click the link again, and then it worked.
So on my to-do list now for next time is go through Jeremiah's instructions on getting the regular stream stuff set up. I'll make sure we get that straight. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Just gotta find the notes now. Okay, welcome everyone. We're already live on YouTube. Sorry for the bit of confusion getting this started. I'll figure that out for next time. So we're ready to start. This is the Diagnostics Working Group meeting for March 2017. Go ahead and put your name in the attendance list if you can get into the document. Today's agenda is on our notes. Let's just look quickly through the previous meeting. We programmatically exposed the V8 inspector URL. Not sure what we concluded on that, but that's relevant to what the final text will be. Make, debug, and alias for inspect. I think that's on our agenda again today. And basically, that's going to be half our discussion, I have a feeling. Switching the CLI debugger, which I believe, yeah, with node inspect, that's all in there now. And text update, what will domain be replaced with? That just stays on our list, I guess, till async hooks lands. Separating trace event common from trace event, we decided that's not important. Or at least we don't need to worry about upstream. Although I think there was an issue a couple days ago about that. Async hooks initial implementation. If we have anything to discuss about that again today, we can. Jan joined us, and so did Nautur. Sorry, I forgot your full name. And then we have the 2 tracking issues for async hooks and trace. And then finally, we had a guide on debugging and a blog on what's been happening with the Diag WG that went out a few days after our last meeting. Okay, so with that, let's see, we are using the Diag agenda tag from across the repos. So let's just start with the first one, which is inspector make debug and alias for inspect. Ali, do you want to introduce what we need to discuss here?
So for debug and inspect aliases?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So so I opened up a request for this a while ago. Originally, I was changing both debug and dash dash debug, and after feedback from you, I've changed it to only make debug and alias of inspect. So I think at this point it's awaiting review. Is that like is it still? Are there any concerns from Visual Studio point of view, or is this acceptable?
Actually, what I was thinking is that this should depend on whether it's 5.8 or 5.7. Meaning if we land 5.7, then we should not alias yet. We might as well let people use the old one if it's still there. If we go with 5.8, then it seems reasonable at least. I have no objections. I don't know if anyone else has opinions.
So my concern is even if we land 5.7, it would lock us out of the whole LTS line 8 to upgrade V8, right? So if we don't do any breaking changes on 8.0, node 8.0, it means that we can't land V8 5.8 any ever inside of during the lifetime of node 8.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I hear that issue, meaning we should land 5.8, in which case, would you agree that if we land 5.8, then we should alias it?
I would say that even if we land 5.7, we should alias it because it is a breaking change.
So you're saying if we land 5.8, we can alias it, and then we basically said this API doesn't exist in 5.7, even though it does, but we're going to pretend it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not supported. Gotcha.
So my so feeling here is that I think it would be good to use a supported CLI debugger rather than an unsupported one in a 8.x LTS line. So so yeah, so that was the motivation. I don't have tremendously strong feelings, however. So that'd be willing to give way if other people have strong opinions.
I have the same concern as Jan that that's going to be hard for us to maintain. I hear that. Is anybody concerned about pushback from the ecosystem? I mean, from Microsoft's point of view, we're fine. We're fine with whatever the community wants to do. Are we concerned about people in the ecosystem that are depending on the old one? I mean, Node Inspector is the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I don't think Node Inspector is I mean, yeah, I don't think that has tremendous amount of use anymore. People have moved on to all the alternatives such as DevTools or WebStorm or Visual Studio Code. All of these tools are working well. So I don't know if the community really is dependent on Node Inspector anymore.
I mean, we did give plenty of warnings, and I mean, it's not like the Node Inspector people aren't aware of this change. Like I think that they are painfully aware that this is coming, and
I think they're
6.3, yeah, and 6.3 is already out for a while. And if they really wanted to, like to make the additional features work, like HTTP request inspection, I think that's one of the few things that is left that is not supported by Dash Inspect, but isn't supported by Node Inspector. They could in theory, just implement that on top of the new protocol if they really wanted to. But I think that it's on them. I don't think that
there's no point really.
Necessarily on us.
Also, switching your toolset is probably easier in cases when someone's stuck using a debug protocol because they're on old stacks. I think it's easier to switch this than to migrate from node 0.10, which I hear there are still companies doing that. So shouldn't be such of a hassle anyway.
Okay, so I think amongst us we have consensus, and I retract my opposite whatever I said in that thread. I hear what you're saying, Ali, that even if we land 5.7, we should alias it. Is there anything to, so let me put it, let me just slightly change that. We know we don't want to surface the old interface, even if it's 5.7, because we don't have to support it. Is there any concern about the alias breaking something? Meaning if somebody, it's a slightly different behavior with inspect, would it be better to just remove it entirely?
That kind of depends on where you want to end up in the end. Like, I would be fine with just changing the naming consistently to be --inspect. We added --inspect break already, so there's precedent for just renaming the thing, right? So we put a lot of work in making the replacement of debug with inspect work. So I think that just removing it would definitely be a tempting alternative because it would just remove any kind of confusion that could arise. On the other hand, if someone is using the command line debugger to just debug a random script, it would force them to be aware of something that they don't need to be aware of. So I'm torn.
Yeah, it's basically, I'm definitely very tempted to say that we should remove debug. But if somebody has like a lot of shell scripts lying around that basically do this, at least we're giving them one more major cycle of warnings before we remove it. But having said that, I think I don't think it's going to be a substantial amount of change for anybody to do in order to react to this. So I'm also wrong. I definitely am very tempted to say that we should remove debug.
Why don't we keep it around with the deprecation flag would still be there for another version, and then we can remove it in 9.
You mean making an alias and deprecate the alias?
Yeah.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds better if you consider communities that have a delay in translations of docs. They might have trouble discovering that inspect is a thing, and their old docs or their resources in their own language would still tell them to use debug, so they can at least discover the new feature.
So any objections to that? I think right now we're saying we should alias debug to inspect and include a deprecation warning.
Sounds good to me.
Ali, do you you'll run with that PR?
Yeah, so I'll run with that PR. I'll go back and double check that my PR is maintaining the deprecation warning, because there's a deprecation warning today, right? So
yep. Mm-hmm.
I'll have to verify that. But yeah, I think I'll make sure of that, and then after that, I think all we need is a review.
All right, so let's move on to the next. Switch the CLI debugger to V8 inspector. What does this one mean? What's this referring to exactly? Oh, this is the tracking issue that Jan opened. Jan, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so the title is by now a little bit misleading because it's no longer, like, the particulars in there are pretty much everything connected to inspect. So from the signal handler up to the debugger. So I'm not sure what we can discuss specifically about this issue. I think one of the things that we should discuss, and it kind of came up already earlier, is which parts do we want to deprecate / remove in 8.0, and when do we land them, because we have, I think, 1 or 2 weeks left to land any breaking changes, which means that if we want to remove something, we need to do it fast. So for example, if we want to remove the -- debug flag in 8.0, which I think we should personally, then we would need to do it soon.
Wait, didn't we just say we're going to alias -- debug to inspect?
-- debug, or I mean, the pull request was to alias this node without -- debug, right? Or maybe I missed the.
It was both, as I understand, right, Ali?
It was originally both. You raised the concern that you actually wanted to keep -- debug around.
Mm-hmm.
So as it stands, the PR right now only applies to no -- debug.
Yeah, so I wouldn't like to alias -- debug, because -- debug is really about a specific protocol, and aliasing the protocol seems to break more than it fixes. At least that would be my expectation. CLI command is a little bit different because it wraps its own protocol client inside of the thing that it spawns, right? So it owns both sides. So aliasing the debug command is not quite as bad, but aliasing -- debug seems fragile.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a pretty sound argument. But it's an independent question. So if it's not, so it's an independent question whether it should be removed in 8.0. And I think the argument from Josh is that actually there's tools such as Visual Studio that are actually dependent on it, that still haven't migrated over to the new protocol.
They actually did, so I'm not so concerned about them. But anyway, I don't want to hold up progress.
So if I think Visual Studio is the only tool I think that is left that is dependent on it to that degree.
Visual Studio automatically detects the protocol these days and switches, so they do not depend on -- debug anymore.
Yeah, you're talking about VS Code, but yeah.
Visual Studio proper. I didn't even think about that one too long ago. So they still depend on the old protocol, or
No, they won't be. But there was some concern. I was concerned about it last time, but we've worked it out now. So yeah, I retract any concern.
Okay, so if that's the state, I think since 8.0 is going to live for a very long time, I think we should remove -- debug.
We should remove it.
Yes.
Okay. In the conversation we just had before was about just the node space debug.
Correct.
Okay, I had this confused.
too many things that use punctuation for differentiation.
Differentiate those. Okay, so our conclusion is we should alias node debug to node inspect with a deprecation warning, because we'd prefer they use node inspect. And we should remove -- debug entirely.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's -- debug and -- debug break to be verbose.
Yeah, remove debug and friends.
So are you talking just about the flags or the implementation?
The flags.
But we're going to pretend, and I guess, is this a valid thing to pretend, we're going to say that it's not a supported API anymore, because that will let us take 5.8 and 5.9.
Yeah.
So even if somebody figures out a way to hack it on, it's not supported. Which reminds me, actually, debug context. They have a PR that if somebody tries to, VM run and debug context from the VM module, it would throw a deprecation warning also. That's going to be the only way to really get at the old protocol.
So
Actually, that's not related to the protocol, right? That is.
Oh, it's not?
That's an entirely different thing. So the protocol is a JSON-based protocol that has been deprecated for a long time, and that's the thing that got removed in 5.8. The debug context is an entirely different sort of a JavaScript and C++ API in V8, and that's going to be around till the end of the year.
Does that mean that the... Oh, I see, because when you run in debug context, you're actually getting JavaScript methods that are the near equivalents of the JSON RPC methods.
So the JSON protocol ultimately did talk to the debug context.
I see.
So, but it was a layer on top of the debug context.
Gotcha. So Ali, what do we need to do about run and debug context? We should just add a deprecation, but we're okay with people still using it.
Yes. Let me think about the timing of the deprecation. So if it goes away at the end of the year, Node 10 will be the first one that removes it. So I guess Node 8 should issue a deprecation warning. Although, I mean, it's a V8 API, so the rule of 2 summer majors doesn't strictly apply, but it still would be good to do it in Node 8.
it's definitely a nice change that we deprecate in time.
Ali, is VM run and debug context not considered a Node API? I understand the debug context itself is from V8, but the VM module.
Yeah, actually, it is a Node API that wraps the V8 API. So the main use for run and debug context is to get at the debug object. I'm not sure what else people are using it for.
And you're saying that's okay to keep doing, but it is going to be, we should deprecate it and it will be gone in 10.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be curious to see if there's other use cases for this. So I'm a bit intrigued by what else people might be doing with it.
I think it's one of the ways to find out in which file a function that you have a handle on is defined or something like that. So like forget getting mirror objects, but it's definitely not something that you would find in everyday application code.
Yeah, so those are all the types of uses I expect. So basically you get add the debug object from V8 and then do things with it. So those are one family. I'm wondering if there's any other use case for run in debug context other than to get at the debug object and do things with it.
Well, maybe what we should do is open the PR for the deprecation and see what that turns up. It doesn't have to land all that fast.
Yep.
Okay. So I think now we're good on the deprecations and stuff. Is there any other thing from that list, Jan, that we should talk about? I know that you had wanted to talk about the switching the signal handler, which I thought that I had captured in the new agenda, but I don't see it.
Yeah, so there's 2 PRs. One is switching the signal handler. The other one is a PR to add support for debugging your PID to node inspect, which kind of depends on the signal handler. I'm not sure if there's anything that we need to talk about. I think both of these are kind of waiting for PR. I think the activate inspector with debug process, that is the one that kind of depended on where we go with our how do we land this discussions. And I think that based on what we just said, landing it in Node 8.0 would be the way to go, right? So in Node 8.0, if you kill user 1, a node process, it should starts the inspect protocol.
Correct.
That would be the breaking change in Node 8.
Right. If dash debug is gone, and then it has to happen because SIG user 1 should start the debug protocol. And
yeah.
Yep.
So I think that PR is just missing reviewers, right?
Correct. That's my understanding. Eugene is here as well, so he can.
Yeah, so it should work, and apparently Node Inspect tried it, and it works for them.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for reviews.
Yeah, it's when I developed the node inspect -p flag, I tested it against this version of this branch. So it definitely does what it says it does.
Cool. Well, I will try to do a review. I can't guarantee. Yeah, well, I will try to, and I will ask others around here if they can. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one because it still has a little bit of relevance to this area also, which is the hint text. Yeah, I think everyone knows my opinion. I'd love it to say ws://IP address :port /UUID and leave it at that, and then a line redirecting to a page. But whatever we want to do, but we have to take out the experimental, so we should finalize this, I think, in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Actually, after I tried out the latest dev tools in Canary, I'm always tempted to go back to the exact wording it had in the old debugger, which is just listening on port or debugger listening on port D. But not sure what others think.
If we only say the port and not the IP address, so there's actually two things I'll add. The IP address might be relevant, because, for example, like I think an issue has come up with Docker, for example. If you listen on 127.0.0.1, you can't connect because Docker does whatever it does to connect you to a proper IP address. So knowing if it's like 0000 or 127.0.0.1 or something else might be helpful, not just a port. And then UUID wasn't important with the old one, but that's kind of useful now.
But so yes, that is kind of important, but at the same time, at least Visual Studio Code and Chrome DevTools don't really care about the UUID because they both hit the /JSON endpoint to just find it themselves. And actually printing out the UUID makes it harder to restart and reload, right? So it's the thing that you actually maybe wouldn't want people to explicitly copy somewhere because it means that they need to go back and forth between the console and their developing tool for each time they restart the process because the UUID keeps changing. So if you go into Chrome DevTools today, so in about inspect in Canary, and you open up the dedicated DevTools for Node, it will just always connect to the current UUID that is listening on the 9229 port, which I think is a much better developer experience than expecting them to copy and paste it from the console.
Yeah, but we have to somehow get developers sort of let them know that this is now possible. I think right now everybody just copy paste, and moving to just a port may actually make it harder. So I think we need to make sure the guide is very prominent and it's very easy for them to sort of just visibly see the one thing they need to do and then just do that forever going forward.
So also, Chrome DevTools will only discover on default port. So it will not discover if user wants to run on a different port due to some conflicts or else.
Unless you manually go in and add them to the list. Yeah.
So if you copy paste the URL, then it will work, whatever.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Actually, I was kind of wondering, because I know that we were concerned that people would want to copy paste the Chrome DevTools URL and that people are doing that now. Is there a way that Chrome DevTools could take just a generic, like WS colon, I don't know if that's an official scheme, but like WS IP port UUID and just copy that into Chrome, and it's really just interpolating that into the Chrome DevTools URL. Would that be possible?
So I can discuss it with the team, but it will still have to be something copy pastable from the user because the URL is too complex.
Yeah. So it would actually be a lot shorter, and some of the complaints like that it's too long and it doesn't copy and blah blah blah. If it's just that short IP port UUID URL.
Yeah, URL without the UUID, because the DevTools should be able to figure out what UUID to use. So I like this idea, but if I'm not an expert on this topic, but I think there was some the DevTools might have some security issues starting up. So Chrome DevTools was a specific prefix to use because it has higher privileges. So that might be something that may not necessarily work if it starts with a different URL.
So in my opinion, this is orthogonal to the topic, to the hint. So even if we update the DevTools, then the hint will still have to be the URL with Chrome DevTools, yada, yada. Because currently, and we don't have a UI to enter custom port. And I don't know what it takes to add one.
Well, so if you go into Chrome Inspect today and you go behind Discover Network Targets to configure, you can already enter a host name :port combination, and it will automatically discover the node process. The only issue is that you need to configure it for each individual IP port combination, then wait for it to pop up, and then click on it instead of having one thing where it's immediately connecting to. So the UI gap is relatively small right now.
Yeah, so it will add another hop for users.
But so if we don't want to be Chrome DevTools specific, which I think is a relatively sane goal to have, then going with the WebSocket scheme URL seems fine.
I guess the question is, Ali, how do we need to bring this to a vote? Do we need to have the discussion about whether to keep the Chrome DevTools URL or to go to a generic one? What is you and Eugene's, I guess, what's your opinion on that?
So I don't think it's just my opinion that's relevant. I think if it's a vote, right, anybody can call for the vote at the CDC. So my opinion shouldn't matter. I think we have to pay attention to usability and discoverability as well. So I think we have to have a proposal, and we can call for vote on a specific proposal at the CDC meeting.
Okay, so what I'll propose is that I will fix up my thing to do what I suggested before. I know that Jan, you mentioned maybe not the UUID, and Eugene, and you might prefer the Chrome DevTools URL. Let's have that conversation there. And if we can't reach a consensus, then we can ask the CTC to make a decision for us. What does everyone think?
That's good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Next on here. Oh, yeah. Next on here is what will domain be replaced with? We probably should just take that off the agenda. Unless someone has something to discuss about that.
Yeah, I think the answer is for the time being with nothing, right? That seemed to be the consensus on the issue.
Should we close the issue, I guess? At least we'll remove it from our agenda. I don't think we have anything to discuss there. Next here is the trace tracking issue. I haven't had any time to do the stuff that's listed there. I don't know if anyone else has things they want to talk about.
Yeah, I wanted to mention one thing. So an issue came up that was open against the Diagnostics group a few days ago. It turns out that the macros that we added fell. So they were pulled in from V8 and they fell out of date with V8, causing them to no longer work. And I'd like to get to a point where we can have some kind of instrumentation of core so that we can test that they continue functioning, so that we can have a test that will catch this on V8 upgrades. So I have a pull request together as soon as 5.7 lands that will update the macros to be in line with the version of tracing that V8 5.7 has. And that will fix them, but I'm hoping to follow on to that with at least some small instrumentation of core to get get things started on discussing how core should be instrumented. I can open the pull request that for the patch that I originally used when I was playing around with Trace Event when we were building it, and hopefully we can discuss from there whether that's the right place to instrument things or whether there are other places that should be instrumented and things like that.
So Matt, are you saying there's two PRs, one to get the macros back up to date and another to add a test to?
Yes, the second one would add some trace points in core. The first ones that make the most sense, I think, are in async wrap, but that's we can talk about where the best place to put them are. But it'd be great to have them appear somewhere in Node Core so that we can have a regression test to make sure these things keep working. Especially now that there are people who are kind of playing around with and trying to see how they work in core. It'd be good to make sure they keep working.
Yeah, makes sense to me. I mean, we've wanted to do that ever since this landed. So yeah, if you can work on it, I'll for sure take a look. I'm sure others will too. Anything else on that? On trace?
Not on our end.
Yeah, like I said, nothing from us at this point, either me or my colleagues at Microsoft. But we do continue to take an interest and hope to contribute some in the future. If you don't know, one of the things here is Jason Gichero's proposal for a JavaScript API for tracing. So take a look at that and give some feedback if you have some time. Okay, next one, last thing on our list actually today is async hooks. If you didn't know, Trevor opened a new PR a few days ago. He said yesterday in the CTC call that he really overhauled it. I haven't looked at it yet. Are there things we want to discuss here? I don't know if Trevor's on. Is Trevor on the call? No. Does anyone? Did they end up adding the embedder API for the userland queuing issue? Does anybody take a look at that? I know we had talked about it in December. Jeremiah had said that they were trying something with that. I'll take that as we probably none of us have completely reviewed it yet. So. Okay, so if there's nothing on that, then if there's any Q&A or other things that people want to bring up. Oh, well, I want to bring something up. So I made an issue. I opened an issue that can we change this meeting to like a fixed day? If that's okay with everyone, it'll make it easier to schedule. We can have it after the TSC meeting, like this, or before on the last Thursday of the month, or the last TSC meeting of the month. Does anybody have strong opinions about when it is, or? Okay, so my proposal is that it be following the last TSC meeting of each month, so at 2 o'clock, like this one. And yeah, hello.
No, I just wanted to it sounds like nobody's opposed. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay, I'll do that, and run basically anything that's tag diag agenda. I just run Rod's node meeting agenda thing and copy that in there. So if you're in a repo or you are in a group that doesn't have that label, go ahead and just put it on, because it automatically goes across all the repos. Okay, sweet. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, and talk to you or see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.